Hey, welcome to another edition of the Get Made podcast. Oh man, we got her back, y'all. Everyone's favorite therapist, Miss Michelle Renée Davis. I've been having the privilege of working with her for the last what about 3 months? We have these sessions like 3 months. These are so as a marriage boot camp sessions that we've been having. Man, she always bringing the heat, y'all. You know what I mean? I really do believe, man, I'm learning some things from this sister because I got to learn how to bring more heat. I ain't gonna tell you no lie. I got to learn how to do better. Cause she be bringing heat, man. She be telling it how it is. Like it who like it, hate it who hate it. You know what I mean? It's all with love, though. Assalamu alaikum, sis. How you doing?
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And alhamdulillah, I'm doing good. I cannot complain. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing good now, especially since I got you on here. You're definitely one of our fan favorites. Returning, you're always returning, and you're always throwing some good gems at us. And so it's a pleasure to see you. Pleasure to see you and hear you again.
Mhm.
Um, I'm gonna jump into this podcast. So, I ain't gonna mix words, and like I told you, it's gonna be something that I'm gonna drop at you. So she don't even know what I'm coming with today.
Okay.
So, but she ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. So, alhamdulillah, I've been kind of give you some context what I'm gonna come with.
Mhm.
So I've been dealing with a few clients lately, right? Some male clients. And it seems to me, like just in this, and I want to see what your perspective, and we'll have a conversation about it.
Mhm.
It seems like they don't have an earthly idea of how to deal with femininity or what is femininity, right? And so I went to thinking, man, and maybe from an Islamic point of view, from a clinical point of view as well, as brothers, have we really lost our connection to dealing with understanding femininity?
So I do agree with that. And the reason being is when you have taken fathers out of the home, it
Mm-hmm.
it leaves the balance lopsided because you don't get to see how men should interact with women.
Mm-hmm.
You just see how women interact with other women, how women are interacting with their children, and then there's no balance, right? Because no one is perfect. It's not even to say like being a single mom, that's inherently just wrong. It's
Right.
just there's no balance, and on top of no balance, then there is the fact that we all have flaws on top of it. So then they get to see just the flawed version of what a woman is, but not how to interact with that femininity and how to promote it to be useful inside of the family dynamic. So it leaves guys feeling at, I'm not gonna say feel at a loss, but are at a loss because they didn't get a chance to see good role models for men interacting with women.
Here's the thing that you know, Michelle, here's the thing that I'm looking at. I've been dealing with cats that got mothers and fathers in the home.
That doesn't mean that it's healthy,
Hmm. Okay.
right?
I didn't see it. I really didn't see it that way, to be honest with you. But you're right. It doesn't mean that it's healthy.
Because we live in an individualistic society. So when we are struggling and need help, we don't reach out to anybody. We
Hmm.
don't tell anybody. We don't get the help that we need. And so what happens is continue to perpetuate the problems that we have. That whole idea of what stays in the house, what goes on in the house, stay in the house, we really got to unlearn that process. Because some things, you don't go and just blast all your business to, Tom, Dick, and Harry.
All
Because
over the internet and all that, right?
and that's another thing that we have a huge problem with. Or if we either on a one extreme or the other. Either we're not telling anybody,
Uh,
we're going to social media to ask social media questions about what we should do in our personal life. And the reality of it is they just like drama. So they're not really going to give you good sound advice. Or if they do give you advice, it probably not even something that they will take themselves anyway. So, like, I'll give you an example, which I always thought was funny. I don't know if you ever heard like Cardi B has said, and I'm quick, cut a ninja off, so don't get
Right.
comfortable, right?
Right.
Look how much she's put up with Offset,
Right.
right? But people be listening to this music, they're listening to what people say online, and so then they're doing these things that nobody is doing. And
Mm-hmm.
so they perpetuated an unhealthy lifestyle that's not based in Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because he is our model and our example. Like when Aisha radiallahu anha, like, you know, broke the plate, he didn't go start yelling and screaming at her. He said, "Oh, look, your mother is jealous." You know,
Mm-hmm.
and he made her, he still had a firm boundary and said, "You need to replace this," but he didn't go yelling, screaming at a woman, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have those examples and role models in our community. And let's be honest, a lot of us as Muslims are very lazy
Mm.
learning our deen.
Mm. Man, and you sweating because they do a lot of ear hustling. Because I tell you what, I ran into, and part of this discussion is I ran into a situation where the brother was talking. I was trying to give him new language to use, and
Hmm.
in the new language, trying to give him, hopefully, give him a new mindset, right? And so, and he was talking about he's gonna give his wife the bare minimum. I said the bare minimum. You mean to tell me you're gonna reduce a person down to the bare minimum? You know, I said maybe how about meeting her baseline first, right? Instead of saying bare minimum, let's look at that and change it. I mean the baseline, right? So that's 1 week. Come back the next week. He was talking again. I said, man, you're setting up a situation where you actually can start using spirituality to abuse a situation. I'm not calling you an abuser.
Hmm.
I'm saying you can set yourself up to be abusive,
Hmm.
right? And how you talking, what you're saying, because I've been listening to what you're saying, right? You talk about, people women got roles, men got roles, all this old type of conversation here, right? New Muslim, right? Revert maybe last 3 years, right? So I told him, I said, man, I've been doing this over 40 years. You know what I mean? I know I done been where you are, right? And I'm saying to you, that's not a healthy way of dealing with, you know, your spouse,
Hmm.
right? And so it's kind of like he's taking this red pill approach, if that makes sense,
Hmm.
right? So, and kind of give our, if you don't mind, give our audience, if you understand it, our audience, the understanding of this red pill and why it may be dangerous.
Well, before I answer that, one of the questions that I will probably ask him is,
Okay.
are you going to allow what someone is doing to change who you are?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So one of the things that like, it was funny because my husband was like, "You've been through a lot. I'm surprised that you don't treat me a certain kind of way." I said, "Because I treat people how I want to treat them based off of who I am and not what they are themselves doing."
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because if I start doing that, I'm going to lose me. I don't ever want to lose me. And if I feel like I'm put in a position to lose me in the relationship, this probably is not the relationship for me. And so sometimes people be having to ask themselves hard questions when they're in relationships and marriages with people, and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to give them the bare minimum." No, you probably always wanted to give them the bare minimum because that's who you are.
Mm-hmm. Right, because you can say it seemed like it flowed off real easy.
Yeah, because it's like, "Oh, yep, I knew that I could. Now it's time for you should. I could finally be me." No, who you are is giving people the bare minimum. But what you're doing is using them as the excuse and the scapegoat to be who you want to be.
Wow, subhanallah. That's what's up. I like that. I like that experience. That's why you're everyone's favorite therapist. That's why you're our residential therapist at Get Made Podcast, because you definitely drop some jewels with that. So,
And people might not understand that concept, so I always use this as an example that when we're interacting with somebody, people
mhm.
always like to say, "Oh, it's because they did this, that's why I did that." No, you did that because that's who you are. Because I can line 5 people up and I can go down the line and slap every single one of them with the same intensity, with the same speed, and each one is going to respond differently.
Mhm.
They want to respond based off of who they are. Some
Mm.
people may slip me back. Some people might say nothing and they might just stand there. Some people may walk away. Some people may hit me back. Some people may pull out a gun. Some people may call people, whatever it is, because that's who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Me slapping you was the trigger that triggered who you are,
Right.
but you are who you are versus
Right. It was already there. Who you are is already there. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that was just the catalyst. So when people try to be like, oh no, it's not. Yes, it absolutely is. And that's what you've always wanted to do. You just need the reason to do that.
Wow. Yeah, it's funny, like you say, I was, because I was, when you get ready to answer it, give you something that some years ago I had put out on TikTok. Matter of fact, they gave me a notification
Mm.
of going to ban me one time, right?
Mm.
Because I was dealing with a subject matter again, this red pill joint, right?
Mm.
And so what happened is with TikTok, I guess I used a name. You're not supposed to use names, I guess.
Mhm.
I used the name in my copy, right? And it flagged it, you know what I mean? So it gave me a warning and told me that I can't do this particular thing, right? I'm like, wow, okay, you know what I mean? And so at first I thought they was giving because I was talking about this individual, his content, right? But eventually they said, no, it's not that. It's this right here. But it seemed like we have a lot of our younger men, especially our younger men, right, have gravitated to this or even the outskirts of this red pill philosophy or ideology.
Mm.
And they tried to say Islam, you
Mm.
know, is a mechanism to actually promote. And then they say the red pill promote the red pill, but the behavior
Mhm.
red pill can be promoted because Islam calls for men to be men, right? Which it does. But then the red pill says men should be men too, right? But it has a whole nother ideology behind it. If you can, like you say, kind of speak to that situation because I think it's important. And okay, let me give you more content on that. I believe it's important because we are talking about how men are viewing femininity,
Mhm.
right? And so if we're looking at some of I'm just identifying one of the things that's out there that's causing, some of this rhetoric and this chaos out here. But it's something that's how allowing us or directing us to really start looking at people as not even being dang near human.
Mm. So what I would say is first I'm gonna start with the first thing. A lot of them people on red pill, their life doesn't even align with the things that they are saying,
Hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I think is very, very important when it comes to, doing podcasts, doing this or doing that, the same things that you are saying should be things that you are willing to do.
Right.
I do not say anything about anything unless I'm willing to do it.
Right.
Now,
If I'm not living it, right. If I can't live it, then I'm not talking about it.
yeah, and I'm not talking about it. But
Mm-hmm.
also to not only just that, and if I'm not willing to do that, I'm going to let you know that I'm not willing to do that, but I heard that this works. Because I'm not going to just be like, oh, because I don't do it, I'm not going to give you information that I might be privy to that may be helpful. I'll tell you, I don't do that.
Right.
But I heard that this helps. And if I do something that I know works, that I'm not living up to it, I let that be known too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, this is hard. I'm letting you know because I'm still going through this myself.
Mm-hmm.
However, this could absolutely work for you. And I think that even I don't remember the person name because I don't keep up with them per se.
Right.
But he was saying something about like single mothers is only good for something. He said,
Right.
but he's in a relationship with a single woman, a single mother who has 3 children,
Mm-hmm.
had a baby with her. So people need to fact check the people that's telling you these advice that they themselves are not even a follow. Because if it's good advice, why are you not following your good advice? That's one part of it. But the second part, as Muslims, right? Just really ask yourself the stuff that they say. Did the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also do that, right? So I saw this one clip where this brother said that a feminine woman would not basically not argue back and forth with him. She would let me be right until I realize that I'm not, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And did the Prophet wives do that? Did the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam say that?
Right. Did he act that out in his own life?
No, he did not. So
Exactly.
for that to be an advice from a Muslim brother to do that, when the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam also asked his wives for advice,
Mm-hmm.
ask other people for advice.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us to think that we have all the answers, think that we are spewing all this nonsense that literally contradicts Islam is crazy to me. And then people were like, "Oh, did you hear what such and such said? Did you hear what the prophet said?" I mean,
Right.
it really is just an interesting concept to me. Now, granted, I do know sometimes packages are not always wrapped up in Islamic language.
Right.
You get that too. So I don't want people to say like, "Oh, well, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't say that, so we're not going to take it." It may not necessarily be that, but it's the principle
Right.
behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we might say something in a way that's more modern, but it has the same concept of what the
Right.
Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam
Mm-hmm.
said or silently approved of. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have to take that, into consideration when we are listening to this thing. Do your fact check, and that goes back to us, having 5-second Dean sessions on TikTok.
Mm. How many seconds, sis?
5 seconds, okay? Because most of the time you don't even hear the whole thing in the first place. So we just hear what we want to hear, and but also too, even when we are listening to these contexts and messages and stuff like that online, the first thing we think about, oh, this applies to somebody else. How about take it for yourself first?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I'm looking at now, and even for myself, you know, I won't really kind of understand femininity if I don't understand masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And so that made me, and as you say, instead of me looking outward, at my wives or whatever the case may be, I need to really start looking inward first,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where am I messing up? Even with my book, the kind of thing, even with the book, it was one of the things that I was needing a peaceful life because I was dealing with high conflict personalities and even a high conflict personality within myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But which then did not allow me to deal with femininity on a better basis, right? Because I wasn't dealing with my masculinity in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one who really kind of shy away, and some people aren't, and that's okay. But I shy away from the term toxic masculinity, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care for it that much. I know people use it as actually overused, probably, right? But I do understand the concept of it, though,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how can I then be in a position of not having bad character
Mm-hmm.
and calling it manhood,
Yeah.
right? Relegating my role to, I remember back in the day, you're a pretty younger sister. You probably don't know much about this one, but the thought about Tarzan, right?
Remember Tarzan? Dang, I'm not that young.
But to understand me Tarzan, you Jane, you know what I mean? Type of joint,
Yeah.
and it's kind of meatheadish behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to, persist with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to kind of dig back into me and start looking at me and looking at masculinity from another point of view to even appreciate femininity,
Mm-hmm.
right? And not these so-called, eras that they got out here talking about, that's just real womanhood, true womanhood,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right?
You call them men simps.
Say it again.
when they call men simps, I think that that's an interesting concept.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Which is a crazy situation to me. That now, I mean, I do understand the idea of simping too, right? When somebody just take it overboard, like you got the guy who's in the red pill, then you got the guy who's just the blue pill, or whatever it might, the other color might be, right?
Mhm.
When he's just soupy serpy, just about women. Women do no wrong. Men are always the problem. You know what I mean? And you got to, come on, man. You parlaying for something. When I'm saying people do that, when you don't have that type of balance, and that's the main thing. I think it was important to say, right? Balance,
Mhm.
right? How as men do we establish balance within ourselves to then understand women better or feminine? How do I put balance of masculinity with me and play so I can understand femininity in a better light and to be able to get more from it, to extract more from it. You know what I mean? To get as high octane, as much high octane energy from my woman,
Mhm.
or my wives or whatever.
Yeah.
How can I get that type of high octane energy from them if I'm not giving, like you say, I'm looking for 93 octane I'm gassing, but then I'm only putting 87 in.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That really that's an imbalance. And so I guess I'm saying a lot to say this. Um, and it started from the original point. We're seeing it different. How can we? What are some things that we can do? And of course, I like talking to you as a clinician because you're definitely going to put as much understanding of Islam that you have into your clinical work,
Mhm.
right? You're not going to really just allow yourself to go beyond what Allah says and what His Messenger says to the best of your ability with your clinical practice, right?
Mhm.
So I definitely want to give you props on that. I wish I had one of them things where they can hit it and then the bombs are dropping and everything. You know what I mean? It's when I give you your credits like that. But flowers might be going across the page, whatever. But what as men, how can we get aligned?
Mhm.
How can we get to the congruency in this?
So I think a few things that some viewpointers that I can give people. One is we are definitely out of balance when it comes to what manhood, what womanhood looks like, right?
Mhm.
And we have way too much confusion about that too. Like, where we have people who think that they can be women, and
Hmm.
want to, and so we don't realize like a lot of that stuff poisons our mind, even if we disagree with it, right?
Mhm.
Because we still may take on aspects of it that's not appropriate. Like, for example, like I refuse to call myself a cis woman.
A who?
A cis woman.
Okay.
People were like, "Oh, it's just identify that you were born a woman." Yeah, and everybody else know I was too.
Right.
So I don't need to put a cis woman on it when I know, y'all know, everyone knows this, to distinguish myself from someone who is not. That's just my point of view. That's my preference. You
Right.
know, um, and so even though and people who do it, they don't realize not necessarily that I'm not saying that it makes you a bad person for saying, "Oh, I'm a cis woman." I'm not saying that. What I am saying is you still taking on ideologies that are not from Islam,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so once you cross over certain lines, it just deteriorates from there because you start accepting other things that's just not aligned with being Muslim.
Right.
you know but also too, and that's why it's so important. You ever realize like whenever you go to any kind of halakha that they always define words, right? Like, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by sunnah? What do you mean by haram? Like, they always give you all of the definitions and things like that, because
Mm-hmm.
when you don't know what it is that you are trying to be, it can cause confusion. And not necessarily on purpose, but that's just the reality of it, right? So I'll give you an easy example, like manipulation, right? People
Mm-hmm.
like especially when I did drug and alcohol, they're like, I'm very manipulative. I'm like, is manipulation a bad thing? They'd be like, yes, manipulation is a bad thing. I say, so if I pick up this Play-Doh and start playing with it, what am I doing with the Play-Doh? Well, it's manipulation. Okay. As a therapist, what do you think I'm doing with you? What they be like, well, technically it's manipulation. Technically it's absolutely manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
So when you use words, you got to make sure you understand exactly what it is of who you're trying to be. So if you're like, I want to be a man, you need to define what that means. Because then you're just, because what happens is you say, I'm a man, but we start to live off of our unconscious beliefs and we never address them and we don't even know what our unconscious beliefs are. So we might think that being a man means that I got to dictate in the household.
Mm-hmm.
That needs to, but sometimes we don't realize that that's what that means. And we need to say it. So people could be like, is you trying to say that being a man is dictatorship? Because then they'll be like, no, actually I don't. But you don't realize that that's how you're operating based off of underlying beliefs that you're not even aware of.
Mm-hmm.
So definitions are very important. So when you say, I want to be a man, what does that mean? Okay, I want to be responsible. Responsible with what? With who? Who's in your care? What does that look like? What does responsibility mean to you? And like really just define and hone in what it is that you want to be. So that's one. When it comes to saying like, oh, I have standards, right? You know how people like, I have standards. What's your standards? They don't know. They just say things that sounds good. Oh, I have
What they heard somebody else say.
Or they be like, I have strong boundaries. What's your boundaries? Matter of fact, what does boundaries mean? Oh, that means no, that's an expectation. That's not boundaries. Boundaries is what you're going to do when those expectations are not fulfilled.
Exactly. Wow, man. Woo.
So people really need to know what it is that they want because you can't go nowhere without knowledge. Knowledge precedes speech and
action. Exactly.
So please do a self-analysis on what that means for you and what it looks like. And then go speak to somebody else and say, hey, what do you think about this list? Because they may either ask something or they'll be like, oh, are you sure about that? Because, it actually means this. Because even though you may not know, you may think you know something, what something means, your brain still may interpret it as something different. And one of the examples that I like to use that, this is no shade to anybody, but like a lot of men that I've heard of, like, yeah, I'm about to go back to the crib. Right. I have yet, and I'm not saying there's no men out there that don't use that term, but I have yet to meet a man that says I'm about to go back to the crib that don't either live with his mom or his girlfriend.
That is his place.
That's his place. But that's what you don't realize. Your mind, your brain makes association so it doesn't have to think as hard. Right. So when you say I'm about to go back to the crib, your brain says, you're a baby and you need to be taken care of. And so everything seems difficult to take care of.
Wow. I just made the connection with what you just said then. Okay.
So that's why you can't get a job. That's why you can't maintain a house. That's why you can't do anything because you keep saying that you're a baby.
Right, because you can't get out the crib.
Because you can't get out the crib.
Wow. And that was kind of the point that I was even making with the brother, is that when we use words, these words mean things, and you don't know the psychological effect that these words are actually playing on you when you use it, because you are actually subjecting yourself to the words that you use.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And like, I'll give you another example.
And you think you're being cool or hip by, or whatever the term, current or whatever the word is that you use, because you're using these words because everybody else is using them, right?
Absolutely. Even like another example that I use, if people don't identify that or they make some excuse about how they know a guy who says that and he has his own place and blah 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 blah, and usually a lot of times they are drug dealers and all other kinds of stuff, but okay, we're gonna let them have grace. But you ever are laying in bed and you're like, I can't get out of bed, and your body literally feels like bricks, like you cannot get out of bed, and then the moment you say, but I need to get out this bed, let me get out this bed, it's still heavy, but you start getting out of bed. because your brain said, oh, you can't get out of bed, so it won't let you.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes we place the limitation on ourselves about what we can and cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not to say that some people don't really struggle with like maybe depression, anxiety, and different kinds of ailments that goes along with it. But what I am saying is that be careful how you speak to yourself, because if you are struggling with depression, speaking to yourself more negatively is making your situation worse.
Mm-hmm.
And so being mindful of that. So the first part that we need to fix as a community is having knowledge about what it is that we want to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Do anybody just open up a business without knowledge? Does anybody just do anything without knowledge? So
Mm-hmm.
why wouldn't it also be with your relationships? Why else wouldn't it be with your personal life, about learning what it is of who you want to be, grow, and change and develop into?
Mm-hmm. Well, and a part of that problem is, I think part of that problem is you're saying that we've been told, you need to, you get of age, you get the desires going, you get these hormones running, you need to go get married,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or you need to go get you a woman, or you need to go get you a man, or whatever it might be, right? And therefore, again, you don't have the knowledge about how to be in a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
how to be even in a relationship with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you have the knowledge to go get these desires met,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then once you get the desires met, you realize that you're on a real relationship. This other person sitting on the side, and then now you have these expectations of what you done heard in the locker room or in these brother circles, or a lot of these meathead circles, in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're going to start enacting that type of stuff out on people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Your ignorance then is going to really just, you know, devastate somebody else,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I know our brother, Dr. Frederick, right? He's doing work on spiritual abuse, and I
Mm-hmm.
know you do a lot of work on trauma yourself. Do a lot of work with trauma, and I, in some instances, I'm kind of weary of always using that word trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma really does happen.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And we devastate people based upon our ignorance,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the surefire way of doing that, brothers, really, I think anybody can tell you that. I know they know that I don't do no simping, right? But I tell it how it is. I tell it to a woman, I tell it to a man. I tell it to a man, I tell it to a woman. But brothers, you have to be in a position of learning. It's just a saying of learning, because if you don't, we're hurting people. We're leaving devastation we're leaving a trail of devastation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because believe me, when you drop that woman out, she have a kid by you. Now you got to do all this, and oh God, I don't even want to go through with all that.
Absolutely. And you bring up a good point that I want to circle back to, when you said, you want to get your desires met. And I'm all for people doing it in a halal way.
Right.
I think people need to take certain things into consideration. You do realize that when you get into a marriage with someone, you are married to them 24/7,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm going to be nice about it and say you had 2 hours of desires every day.
Ooh, 2 hours. Yeah, you are being nice.
Being really nice. 2 hours.
2 hours during the week, maybe. I don't know, but
You
anyway.
do still realize that you got 22 other hours with that person.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say 22 hours, obviously, hopefully you have a job. Hopefully you're doing other stuff, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
However, one of the things about relationships is that if you start having problems and things like that, you're going to carry it everywhere, whether that's to work, whether that's to your sleep, to your dreams, you're waking up stressed, depressed, and it's going to carry into every area. So you're going to be 22 hours of stress all the time if you don't master who you are and make sure you're trying to birth a healthy relationship.
Hmm. I don't know if this question I'm going to ask you is kind of off the topic in a sense. In my mind, it is, but I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna let you work with that, and maybe you throw it back and say, that ain't it. That ain't where we at right now, Hassan. But
Okay.
when we are having these conversations, then we start trying to equate love into the situation,
Mhm.
right? And it used to be a commercial because it was a book that was out or a play many years ago, right? Especially here in Atlanta, you used to hear it come on the radio. How do you love a black woman, right? Right, and that was the whole marketing scheme, right? But it was real. I think that was the name of it, right? But how do we then love femininity?
I think that feminine, being a feminine woman, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think one, when it comes to like, black men loving black women, right? We have to start to understand that black women femininity versus other cultures' femininity is not the same. Because we're both in the same struggle that you are in too.
Mm-hmm.
So we may be a little bit more rough around the edges because
Mm-hmm.
we have to protect you and us from outside forces that don't like us.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, as women, we do need to understand when we got to take that armor off. But it's hard to take that armor off when the people that look like you is also the ones that's targeting you too. Where you got to feel like you got to put that armor back on because you're not loving me correctly or properly. Um, so at some point, it's a conversation that everybody has to have. Um, I'm not 100% fan of Omar Johnson, but
Right.
sometimes he drops some wisdom.
Right. I'm not either. Okay? If I could,
Just
man,
drop-
sometimes I want to hit Omar Johnson in the back of the head, then I want to bandage it up. You know what I mean?
you know, and one of the things that he said was because the guy asked, "Why should I have to pay for women's poor selection?"
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "No, you have to take responsibility for the fact that she has a poor selection."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and because in our community where people do not like to address the elephants in the rooms, is that
Mm-hmm.
because there is a war, on black people, we are hit with a lot of systemic stuff of no fault of our own
Mm-hmm.
that we are continuing to perpetuate on top of it. So, like the mass incarceration of black men. When you have a bunch of men who are massively incarcerated, that brings about its own challenges,
Mm-hmm.
right? In regard to employment opportunities, in regards to sexuality, in regards to not having access to how to treat women in a feminine way when you just been around a bunch of masculine, overly masculine men, some of them because of whatever that they have going on. So they're coming out. So you have that issue. And then you have it where the ones that are out who are having a difficult time with finding becoming gainfully employed. Because I've met brothers who have college degrees are struggling to get employment, and resume look nice, but when they show up to an interview, they like, nope, we don't want you. Um, and so we have a host of struggles in our community, right? And so when you put these two together, we have to start to realize that we are not each other's enemy, because they have perpetuated this idea that is actually just not true.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like when they be like, yeah, I remember when they're gonna go off and get a white girl when they become successful, and it's just like, even though majority of the people that I see is black men marrying black women,
Right.
but for women, we have this belief that now I don't want to help you because as soon as you make some money, you're gonna leave me for a white woman, you know. Um, and so it's just so many stereotypes that are against us. And they perpetuate that idea because then they want to highlight all the black men who got money that are with white women when there's a whole host of them that who are also with black women.
Right.
You know,
Right. And that because that really is a misconception. You know what I mean? Because the reality of it is there may be black men who have white women, right? But the skew is really black men with black women,
mhm,
regardless of what their financial or their socioeconomical status might be.
mhm. And then on top of that, then the ones who do decide to marry white women, what happens is they they didn't just marry them because they love they fell in love with this woman. They use it as an opportunity to step on the backs of black women and say how because black women are this black they can never see themselves with a black woman even though your mother raised you. um and so then it's always that idea of, do you hate your mom, do you hate your sisters, because these are the people that look like you who relate to you more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so why wouldn't you want someone who has a better opportunity to be able to have a relationship with you on commonalities? Now, that's not to say every black person experiences the same exact thing, but regardless, we still have a better understanding of each other's experience as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have all these things like stacked up against you, then you don't have that model for you. Um, Loving a black woman becomes difficult. And then I think we too hype about the feeling of love versus the action of love.
Okay.
Right. So it's like, oh, if I'm not in love with you, then this is not going to work. Right. And my question always to them, if you're single right now and you're in your 40s or you're in your 50s and you're single right now, have you dated someone who you love who was not a good fit?
Mm-hmm.
And they always tell you because they obviously love that person unless they passed away.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a possibility that I need to like you? I need to like you. Do we have common things that we can do with each other? Do we enjoy? Because even think about like with friendships, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not in love with my girlfriend. I love you, but I'm not in love with you. There's no romantic feelings, but you are one of my favorite people that I want to hang out and enjoy time with because I like you.
Mm-hmm.
We have common aspects of our personality and things that we enjoy and Islam and these things that allows us to coexist with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I can love you, be in love, and you are treating me so wrong. And so that whole idea of I gotta be madly in love, falling over the chair, I find that
Now with chair.
I find a majority of the time is based in trauma bonding.
Mm.
Um, when people like have this overly like love for someone, it's usually trauma bonding. Not always, because nothing is always.
Right. That's why we definitely not dealing in the absolute here.
Yeah.
But okay, you make a point in saying the trauma bond, and instantly a thought as you was talking, I'm thinking of the points in my head. I'm listening to you. I'm thinking of the points. It's just bells are just ringing all over the place, right? If I am then we're not really talking love, especially when a person don't know how to even love themselves, right?
Mhm.
And if I'm honing this in, we're talking masculinity to femininity, but it can easily go back to the other direction, femininity to masculinity.
Mhm.
This conversation can easily turn over to, it can be the other,
Absolutely.
and we having the same conversation. We
Mhm.
just flipping the roles, right?
Yeah.
Um, when we already established that in many instances they didn't see masculinity portrayed in a household, right? So
Mhm.
they really kind of got the locker room talk about masculinity,
Yes. Mhm.
right? Um, or if they were in a home, it probably more likely it probably wasn't that healthy, and what you saw was potentially bills getting paid, and that's probably about it,
Yes. Mhm.
right? Now, for those, there are some of us who's a rarity that had the whole full experience of as a parent and everything else. And, you know, may they be blessed. And I don't hope they're doing something different than, falling into the traps of what's going on today.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because influence can always pull a person off from what they've actually been taught, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you like to be pulled, you know, had a friend one time. It's crazy, bring things up. Had a friend one time. I ain't gonna say what it is because everybody who knows this would know who this person is. But she was one, and that was several. She was one who loved being around projects.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't have a project upbringing, but loved gravitating to the projects.
Mm-hmm.
Right. As he got older, of course, it kind of some of the lifestyle of that's changed, right? But I'm talking about the pool more so than anything else. That we can then have this pool because we think this is glamorous. We see this on TV, or we see this in whatever. We have all these other things. Oh man, you're lame, or you this or that. Something wrong with you if you giving over to women like that, and all that type of stuff here, right? We catch that. Muslims catch that real. I've seen that many times as Muslims when a brother's checking another brother about a sister. Man, and I hate when they use this term here. Man, you identify with them bends, right? Which we know that he's an egghead in the first place, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you hear that kind of conversation, you know that they didn't get the proper training at home that they should, or they weren't paying attention. And so when they get into the relationship, it really is about trauma bonding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if you don't mind, for some of our listeners who may not quite understand trauma bonding, what does that look like?
Okay, so I know they recently like redefined trauma bonding, but I'm gonna go back to the old school way of trauma bonding. I'm an old
Okay.
school girl myself. The newer version, I don't agree with it. However, so trauma bonding is usually is could be two things.
Mm-hmm.
One is that two people bond over a shared experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I have a friend that me and her really bonded at this job that we worked at because it was traumatic. So we really got close because of that shared experience. But also, too, another form of trauma bonding is like, let's just say, I want to give a good example. Say if I had the absence, like, I'm trying to think. Let's just say I'm oldest child syndrome, right? So a lot of times with older children, a lot of times they take care of the younger sibling, right? They
Right.
put all
That's me.
their
That's
last,
me. I'm like that.
yeah, they put all their needs last, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. So usually what happens is they might marry, not always, but they may marry someone who is also overly dependent.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have to take care of that person. And then what happens is they're very frustrated, like, why do I always got to do this? Blah, blah, blah. But you're bonding over the trauma that you guys both have had because you may have been the baby of the family.
Right.
And everybody took care of you. So you never
Right.
had to do anything. So it could be potentially that you're bonding over trauma. Doesn't necessarily, and this, I want people to be clear, just because you're an older child and just because you're a sibling doesn't mean it was traumatic for you.
Right.
Or maybe just habitual and habits that you
Right.
should break out of.
Right.
But some I've seen where it was very traumatic experience for them to be the older child, where they was put in a position to be mom, dad, because their mom and dad was on drugs, coked out, and so they were doing everything, waking them up in the morning, getting them dressed, going to buy their clothes, going like doing every single thing, making sure they had something to eat, where it was a traumatic experience for them.
Right.
And there are some older children where you have responsibilities of your younger ones, where you need to just get out the habits that was just developed over years of being an older sibling.
Mm-hmm.
So, and usually the second form is just more likely to happen where something that you were missing then you react it in your relationship. Even like with love languages, people don't realize a lot of times your love language is the thing that was neglected the most in your childhood, and so you want it so much more now, as you get older. Which is why
Mhm.
a lot of men, they'll be like their love language is physical touch, because
Mhm.
generally speaking, with little boys, we don't love on them like we love on our girls.
Mhm.
Right? We don't give them as many hugs and forehead kisses and all that kind of stuff. Then they grow up, they're like, "Oh, mine's is physical touch. I like to be up underneath a woman." No, because you didn't get that when you were younger, more than likely.
Whew. Man, you just called me out then. You just called me out then. Well, I was like, wow, and sometimes we have to sit in this discomfort, when things are not comfortable, we have to manage ourselves in this discomfort, right? But here's a question I have, because we said trauma bonding.
Mhm.
Anytime people are getting together,
Mhm.
there's bonding.
Mhm.
That's it. It's bonding, right?
Absolutely.
And you know, when we having some, experiences, we having like experiences, right?
Mhm.
Let's say we having a sit down. Let's do a sit down. We do a sit down type of, that's how we do it, right? We have these conversations, we're talking, yeah, and we talk about experiences.
Mhm.
Are we setting up the trauma? Because again, I'm connecting this back to masculine and feminine. How as masculinity, as men, we're not really tapping into femininity the correct way,
Mhm.
right? And we hearing her talk,
Mhm.
right? And or she's putting her best representation out there,
Mhm.
right? And or we're showing up, and here I'm putting my best representation out there. I'm a provider, because man, if I hear one more man say that, they lead off that I'm a provider and a protector.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You just skipped over the whole thing that you probably got practice dean first, right?
Mhm.
That you're a follower of Quran and Sunnah. First thing they do, because they know that's impressive.
Mhm.
When I do my premarital, right?
Mhm.
When first couple of weeks, we do this thing here, right? What is it that you bring to a relationship for a person to get to have fulfillment in it?
Mhm.
That's week one. Then week two, we come out. What is it that you are needing in order to be whole in a relationship?
Mhm.
The first week, they always struggle. We try to talk about themselves, but when they start talking about what they need from the other person, man, it's like a laundry
Look
list.
at this. Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I say 3 to 5. You know what I mean? I just give me 3 to 5, right? Because I know a laundry list going to show up, right? And so, but I hear men, when the first thing is like, this is this thing, I'm a protector, I'm a provider, and protector, right? So, he gonna pay all my bills. Oh, he gonna keep me safe from harm, from somebody going acting crazy. That's what it sounds like you're saying.
Mhm.
You could put 4'11", you could be 7'2", right? Every man got the same, seeming like the same thing that they actually come out with, right?
Mhm.
Which is okay, but it seems like that causes a trauma bonding effect. In my opinion, it causes a trauma bonding effect because one, the woman is definitely looking for some type of security because she probably don't have it, right? And two, you're trying to make a connect to you that you can do this because you already lightweight know that, especially if she may have children or she may not or whatever, that she is looking for somebody to help her out.
Mhm.
Don't get it twisted. You know what I mean? She is looking for some help, and you're looking for, hell, you looking for help too
Yeah,
sometimes.
too. Yeah, I'm supposed to say they looking for help too.
Help too. You know what I mean? And so, so is that the trauma bonding experience?
I think for those kinds of scenarios, people just want to put their best foot forward, and
Uh-huh.
this is what I would hope that if they don't get nothing from this, but this, stop doing that. Stop doing that. It
Mm-hmm.
sounds good on paper, right? But let's just change the dynamics. If you were a supervisor, if you was a supervisor at a job, you hired somebody and they told you all these butterfly beautiful things, and they get in there and they just running amok, you're going to get rid of them. That's what happens with our marriages. Until people are honest about who they are, what they're struggling with, relationships and marriages are always going to be temporary. Always going to be temporary. And what I mean by temporary, don't think because you got a 10, 15, 20-year marriage mean you got a good marriage.
Right.
What I mean by temporary within those longevity marriages that you'll have, the temporary is 1 month out of it, 1 day out of the month you're having a good time. And the other 29 to 31 days you can't stand each other. Right? So until you are honest about who you are, what you're struggling with, what you're dealing with, it's never going to work properly. Because some people, and then some people, you have to really be honest with yourself. You're not ready for marriage. You are not ready you're not in the headspace to be ready for marriage. Because if you marry someone, and I've met a guy like this, if you marry a woman because you want them to fill your ego, baby, it's never going to work.
Right.
It's never going to work, because when you need external validation, nothing is going to ever be enough.
Right. You're never going to get enough if you need that much. If you need external validation like it, it's never going to be enough, because the more you get it, the more you're going to want it.
Yeah, it's never going to be enough. You have to learn how to internally validate yourself. People just, and on a woman's side, like, you just have to start loving you. Because if you're looking for a man to love you and you don't get it, you're just going to hop from relationship to relationship to relationship. That's just the reality. And people need to start really believing people when they say things. You know, because I do.
You believe them?
I believe them. I listen, when people, I believe you. I don't make no excuse. We always try to, you got to give a Muslim 70 excuses.
Right.
First of all, they know what they did. Because if we supposed to, well, number one, yes, we're supposed to be merciful to one another, right? However, right, again, look at the prophet husband. Look at the prophet's husband. Look at the prophet in his life, right? Was there people that he didn't go make excuses for why people did certain things?
Right.
Did it?
Right.
He may have said forgive them. Yes,
right.
More righteous to do.
Right. But he might show them how to recover. Right.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean you have to deal with that. It doesn't mean you have to stay with them in your life. So, like, even my ex-husband, and this is how I knew that this was over. Because he kept saying, "You don't know who you are." I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting aspect of that you're saying to me." But okay, we're gonna go with it. And so I had to do a 20-page paper about myself in grad school. That was stressful. Okay.
Right.
So I read it to him. And he was like, "Oh, you really know who you are?" I said, "Yes, I do." I said, "So certain things I self-reflect even before I bring it to the table about what my concern is. So I already done some conversations with myself about, is this even appropriate? Is it really my fault? Blah, blah. I already had that conversation. And now I still may be missing some aspects of it. This is why I'm coming to you. He was like, "I'm not ready to do that kind of work." No problem. I'm not going to be like, "Oh, maybe, that was really difficult for him. I can see how that could be hard." Well, guess what? You can do that with someone else, because you're not going to abuse me, because you are internally in turmoil. And we do that over and over, and even when I self-reflect on that, it were things that were said during the sit-down process that I should have been like, no. Because even sometimes even me, I view, because this is what people don't understand too. Sometimes you got to take your own eyeglasses off, because sometimes we view people through our own glasses. And so sometimes I've excused things because I'm not like that. So I don't see the sign, because I'm not like that. So I'm not thinking in that way. So sometimes that's why having a wali, wakil involved in the process is so super important, because they're not invested in getting married.
Right.
So they don't have those rose-colored glasses on that you have. And so keeping those people in the process is important. Even for a man, making sure, like, as a man, say, like, sis, where's your Wally or Wakil? Because he may notice that I'm not a good fit for you. It doesn't necessarily be it's a bad thing. I might not be a good fit for you because he knows you and I don't. You know, he may see things in me that be like, that's not going to work for her.
Mm-hmm.
It's for both of y'all protection.
Mm-hmm. So having a better understanding, especially for masculinity, having a better understanding of saying no without it being viewed as rejection.
Let me
qualify rejection.
No, I do understand what you're saying, because I know some men do struggle with rejection when they hear the word no, right? The reality of the matter is you reject women too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times I be having to remind people that why is it okay for you to do something that you don't want other people to do to you?
Mm-hmm.
And when you keep that in mind, like, every woman is not my cup of tea, just like I'm not going to be every woman's cup of tea. That's like numerically or grammatically or whatever the concept that is, incorrect.
Incorrect, right?
Impossible for you to be everybody's cup of tea.
Right. Numerically, numerically, it's just entirely impossible for you
It's
to be
just
everything to everybody.
That's an impossible standard that you're setting yourself up to hurt your own feelings, to think that, or, and a lot of times what happens, like, well, I accept it if I don't want her to. No, it don't work like that, because women that don't want you, that wants you and you don't want them. That's just the reality of the dating pool.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, and that's the other side of it. Honestly, if everyone wanted you, let's just say every woman did want you, then who are you? Because you have to start changing yourself for other people for everybody to want you when you're in different kinds of spaces. Going against your views and values. Because there are women out there, like, let's just say a Christian woman, like, I would never date a Muslim. And if she wanted you to, then what are you doing? You have to be doing something and changing who you are at your core for everyone to want you.
This has been probably one of the more enlightening episodes that I've had. Because I really do believe we are missing the mark, and we're not going to be supportive of one another, meaning men and women. If we're missing the understanding of masculinity and femininity, right? Sometimes I do put it back in as a man, I'm not really responsible for my wife. I'm responsible for my wife. I'm not responsible for my wife. That makes sense.
Absolutely.
And I think leadership is important, right? There can't be two leaders in a home, right? Just like can't be two men, just like can't be two women that's living up under one roof, right? There has to be at some establishment, and how you take it from the sunnah, even traveling, you have to appoint one who's going to lead the prayer, right? That somebody has to lead, and there should be an understanding of who that person is going to be, right? Well, I think the same thing with leadership in the home.
Yes.
I think leadership is important in the home, right? I think we rest our hats on it too much, that this whole obey type of conversation with people talking about. I think we overhang our hat a little bit on that. But nevertheless, I do understand that there's and it makes me think of the ayat where Allah talks about He made the man and women equal, but He gave a man a degree over her, right? And sometimes we exploit that degree to be like degrees above. I heard one email explain that it's really a small step just to show the difference in between the man and the woman, because both of them are equal, but he had to make a distinction one way or another
Mhm.
in order for leadership to be, and then then here comes your responsibilities in leadership, right? You know, um, I think though, I think this conversation has been beautiful because there is an identifying factor now. If people are listening to it and you are thinking, how can I change me up a little bit? I think we identify some things. You're able to identify some things. Obviously, it can continue to go deeper than that,
Mhm.
right? Uh, I implore everyone who's listening to actually kind of dive a little bit more into it. Even to find out themselves about masculinity, their understanding of masculinity, and then having a real direct impact. I won't say influence at this point. Impact, maybe it's the same thing, on women,
Mhm.
right? Because I think we're not really understanding. We want certain things, but we're not understanding. We're minimizing the roles that we actually need to play
Mhm.
when we get caught in the protect and maintain, and a woman's supposed to, you know, sit at home, do what I tell her to do. You know what I mean? Double bolt the door. You know what I mean? Can't come out. Lock from the inside, lock from the outside. You know what I mean? Windows thrown. I'm being extreme, right? Windows blacked out. All this old type of stuff here, right?
Mhm.
We know it's happened, right? But that's somebody who is not understanding femininity.
Yeah. And I think we have to learn how to learn something and apply it to different scenarios. And because I want to go back to the point where you were talking about like obey, right? Everyone who is anyone that is Muslim understand that you have to obey Allah. It is obligatory for you to obey Allah, right? However, Allah also give us free will to make choices and decisions about our life,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so why would you think as a man that you should get the same status as Allah to have complete obedience in a way that even Allah does not even require? If that makes sense. Like it's required that we are obligatory, maybe that we are obedient, but he give us free will to not do that. Why do you think that you deserve more than what Allah has called for himself
And then give out less,
and then give out less?
right? I mean, this is the whole concept of mutafifi,
Mhm.
right? Those who extract the amounts, the greater amounts, but they give the least of amounts.
Mhm.
And again, I'm just giving a simplified example of it.
Yeah, and
Right?
Allah wakes us up, have our heart beating. He gives us breath, life. You know, He gives us everything, and He gives us a choice. Why do you think you have a greater stance in my life than the Lord of the worlds?
Hmm. Whew. Man, this has been a beautiful show today. I've learned a lot, man. I don't know about nobody else. I learned a lot today, even just for myself and reflecting, and hopefully just to be able to come out as a better man, and I can understand, our women a lot better. Including that the one that's with me, and including the one that are not with me that I come in contact with. Right. Um, any last parting words before I, get ready to sign off and turn this thing, turn this thing
Yes,
over to you for you.
yes, I do have one thing because I want to also give the other side too. Is that when you meet a woman, right? Because I'm not trying to say negate that Allah says that we should obey you, but if she's not obeying the law, what makes you think that she is going to obey you?
Hmm. Leave me alone.
Yeah. So you go find your
You hear me? Michelle, leave me alone now. You keep messing with me.
you go find a sister who not covering, not praying, like, oh, we gonna get married. Alhamdulillah, she gonna start. No, she's not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, she's not. She's not gonna do that. Oh, you go and went and got you a Christian woman? No, she's not. Okay. Go find you a Muslim that's doing it.
Right. So, and because that is the other side of that whole idea. And that, Michelle, is the simping part. I know we said earlier, we were talking about that earlier. That's the simping part. You know, that, you know, Imam Shadid, when he gives what do you call it, dayut? I think that's the word he used, right? No, cockle. That's the word he used. Cockle, right? Cockle. That's the word he used, right? And so, you know, because that's what really we as men turn into when we do that.
Yeah.
You know, and then that is something that is really, you know, we have to, and I think that's the fear of most men. That's why most men go hard on the other end, because they don't want that. They don't want that end of it, right? Some, I can say all like that.
Well, this is what I would say, and I promise you, and I'm quite sure a lot of women will agree with me, except for, you know, the ratchet ones.
Right.
Women who respect, love their husbands naturally will follow. It's not to say there's not going to be no conflicts or disagreements or things like that. She will naturally follow your leadership if she respects you and trusts you to lead her somewhere. Don't be, you want to lead her to the fire, but want her to follow you. Like, no, that's not how that works. If she trusts and loves you and respects you, and she's going to naturally follow you. You don't have to do a lot of work. We're actually quite easy. You don't have to. People think we're so complicated. We're actually really, really not. Quite obvious. Consistency, blah, 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 blah. It will go. It will go.
Wow.
For good women. For good women who do work on themselves.
Okay. All right. Well, we definitely appreciate your input, you know, and your knowledge in this situation. Again, you know, you were prepared because you was able to come with it, because I definitely didn't give you the.
No, you did not.
You know, and you had a full conversation on this joint, so alhamdulillah, definitely appreciate it. So if you can let people know how they can reach you, you know, for those who are looking for services. I know you, and you can explain your whole services package to everyone if you don't mind.
So I am licensed in PA, Delaware, and Maryland. I do accept insurance. If you go on my Psychology Today profile, it'll tell you all the list of insurances that I accept. If you're in Maryland, you can look me up on ruler.com. It'll show all of the list of insurances that I accept for Maryland. You can either contact me through Psychology Today or Ruler, or you can go to my website, which is W as in where, F as in Frank, M as in Mary, M as in Mary, H as in Harry.com, and you can schedule an appointment through the website. And I look forward to seeing anyone who I can assist them with moving forward with their life to having successful. And when I say relationships, I mean relationships in general, whether that's with your children, whether it's with your spouse, whether that's with your parents, whether it's with Allah, you know, whether that's, you know, with your studying, whatever it is, I can help you with, get through those kinds of difficult relationships and process any trauma that you might be experiencing or have experienced.
Right. So I want to make sure that you said something. I want to make sure that people also understand this, and maybe you do, maybe you don't, because I know you spoke of insurances. Maybe somebody might be in Alabama, Georgia, or whatever. They want to use your service even though they can't use insurance. Do you take direct pay?
I do take direct pay. It's $150 per session.
Okay. And so, you know, I want everybody to kind of, if you got it, you know, if you need it, by all means, tap into her. You know, she's a beautiful person. She does some great work in this field, and we definitely appreciate you being, you know, a recurring, you know, guest here in the Get Made podcast. Definitely appreciate you. So we just bagged another one, y'all. Here it is. We're closing out. This is a great session. I learned a lot myself, things that I can do better. Hopefully, sharing in this information. By all means, please share this podcast. By all means, comment if you can, inbox if you need to, because we need to get this information out there. Y'all know the algorithms are crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we got to play with these algorithms a little bit, and the algorithms are only going to touch you when you touching us,
Mm-hmm.
right? We can only touch the world when y'all touch us, right? And we don't want to be one of these places where this great information is there, but it's just sitting there. At some point people won't get to it, and that's all within the Allah's plan. So we're just asking you, telling you how you can help us out with moving this forward. So subscribe to my channel. It's a Hassan Clay Experience on YouTube. Continue to follow me here on Facebook at Hassan Clay, and tap into me on TikTok and Instagram with the Hassan Clay Experience. They was Hassan Clay _experience on Instagram, and it's the Hassan Clay Experience on TikTok. You got a whole bunch of stuff, but y'all put my name in there, it'll show up. And you know what? Ain't many people with the name Hassan Clay running around here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, it's one of those. There's a whole bunch of Hassans, but no Hassan Clays. Okay. So, by all means, please continue to tap into us. And we broadcast every Monday at 7 p.m. It's of course, it's pre-recorded, but we send it up and put it out there every Monday at 7 p.m. By all means, please subscribe, follow, get this word out. And we thank you. We thank you for those of you who do continue to support. Thank you for your support. And inshallah, we're going to see you in the following week, Monday at 7 p.m. All right. Thanks, sis.
No problem.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.